If you're a fan of escargot, you might want to skip this one. Hello, welcome to the Black and Blue Collar Reader. If you're new here, my name is Dan. Today I'm going to be reviewing my first manga on this channel. Not only my first manga, but my first horror manga. I grew up loving comic books. I almost put my grandparents in the poorhouse by how many comic books I bought as a kid. I also grew up loving horror. I mean, being an 80s kid, our generation had the best horror, bar none. We had Friday the 13th, Child's Play, Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and so many more. And I would say that, you know, horror now starts to annoy me, and this is the reason why.
Let's hide in the attic.
No, in the basement. Why can't we just get in the running car?
Are you crazy? Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Smart.
So, as you can see, it's just the same thing over and over again, the same unimaginative and redundant storylines that just really had me falling out of love with horror. However, I read Aspect Emperor series by R. Scott Baker. That's more fantasy oriented, but there are horror elements found within that story, and I really enjoyed them. So I wanted to try to give horror another shot. Like I said, I wanted to give manga another shot, so hey, let's combine the two and do Uzumaki. And you know what? I really enjoyed this manga. And why don't we just get right into it? Uzumaki takes place in a Japanese seafaring town with like limited escape routes. The author Junji Ito sets the tone really quickly. From the first page, we get our protagonist, Kiri Goshima. She's kind of just lazily standing on the mountainside, staring out over her town. And it really just provided you with this creepiness, you know. And then we start to move on. We meet her boyfriend. I'm going to fuck this up, but it's Shuichi. That's what I'm going to go with. Don't at me, okay? So we meet Shuichi, and he begins to tell Kiri about how his father has become obsessed with this certain pattern, this spiral. And then Kiri runs into him in an alleyway, and Shuichi's father is just fixated on this snail shell on the wall because of its spiral pattern shell. And all of a sudden, this fixation begins to manifest and snowball, and this man starts buying everything that has spirals on it, won't stop talking about the pattern. He gets Kiri's father to make him a bowl with spiral patterns on it, and she brings it to him, and Shuichi's father's eyes begin to roll in his head when he's talking about the spiral at different times. So it begins to manifest itself physically and snowball and escalate, and in lies some art that is some of the most amazing body horror art that I have ever laid eyes on. I gotta say that the structure of this story was also quite ingenious. You get these things right here. This is paneling. These, you know, blocks that we go through in comic books, and Junji Ito really starts to build tension after each of these blocks start moving on. And many times throughout the story, you would start going through the blocks and get to the end of the page, and you knew that when you turned that page, you were going to get smacked with some brutal and disturbing imagery. It kind of started building the tension, like, you know, when you see a Friday the 13th movie and, you know, Jason's about to kill his 197th stupid teenager, and you hear that and you know it's about to go down. That's kind of, he built that into this book with the paneling. You would get down to that last panel on that page before you turn it, and you knew, boom, you were going to get hit. You were going to be frightened about what you were going to see on that next page. I thought that was just ingenious. I love that part of this book. This book, I believe, is broken down into 19 chapters. Yeah, 19 chapters. There's some bonus chapters at the end, so it's very episodic. The first two stories are a part 1 and a part 2, and they flowed really nice into each other. However, once we got to part 3, it started to get a little disconnected and didn't flow as well for me, but it kind of started to make sense, because if we think, you know, the way he incorporates the spiral into his horror imagery and into the actual story was just so intelligent. So we started off with a single incident of, like, Suishi's father that I told you about. He becomes obsessed with spirals, right? We start off with that single incident, and then that spiral starts to move, and his wife becomes obsessed with spirals, and that starts to move, and then Kirigoshima's father, who actually made the ceramic bowl for her boyfriend's father, he gets infected by the spirals. And then the school gets infected by the spiral. And then the projects of this town get infected by the spiral. And then it just keeps going around, the hospital, the lighthouse. And it was just so amazing how he laid that out, that structure. It also gave you the world building throughout the comic. You know, we got to see the school, the lighthouse, the projects, the beach, all these different areas that the spiral started infecting, and it started to grow and grow like, of course, spirals do. And before you know it, the whole town was infected by this spiral and obsessed with this pattern. Another part that was just really cool were some of the themes found inside this manga. You know, we had some survivalist parts that, you know, what would you do in order to survive? Would you eat snails? Would you eat snails that were once human to nourish you and get you through the day so you didn't starve? We also got some like agoraphobic kind of things, which is the fear of not being able to escape. And with this spiral, it's like there was one point in the story where they couldn't escape their town, which is being, you know, consumed by this entity. And they kept going places and ending up right back at their home. And that kind of makes you think, like, do we ever escape our home? I've moved away from my home, and every time I go back, I feel just a little something inside. You know, good or bad or indifferent. Some of these themes were just so well realized within this story. I really dug how he incorporated the spiral really into the themes of this book. They were just done exceptionally well. Now, did this book scare me? No, honestly, I don't get frightened too easily. Did it build tension? Absolutely. Just like I said in the beginning about that style, that structure of how he built tension, the tension was building. I was frightened. I wanted to see what happened next. And I was, you know, baffled and intrigued by the story that he provided. Now, you know, I wasn't scared, but did I start walking around my house, going throughout my day and noticing spirals? You're damn right I did. So I really want to quickly give you one story that I absolutely loved in this manga. I didn't want to spoil anything, so if you don't want to know what happens, just move on. It's one story in the 19 that you are provided, but it was just a dark and disturbing story that it just still is in my brain. This story is about Shuichi's mother. who's not obsessed with spirals. She's absolutely terrified of them. So terrified that she had to be committed into a mental institution. And while inside in the mental institution, she notices that her hair has spirals. So her hair had to go. She shaves her whole head bald. Also, she's sitting there, sedated, staring at her fingertips, and she notices that her fingerprints have spirals. So they had to go. She cuts her fingertips off. They wrap her all up. They sedate her even more. She swears she's okay. She goes to the doctor to have herself released. She says, you know what, I'm not scared of spirals anymore. It's fine. But then she looks up at the wall and notices that in the inner ear, there's a spiral. And that, no, we can't have that. She sticks the frickin' scissors right in her ear and messes up her cochlea, I think it is. It affects your equilibrium. So now she has no sense of balance, and she spends her entire life in a spiral. Ah, such a great story. I definitely started to look at things a little differently because of this story. I really enjoyed Uzumaki. I thought it was great. The art was beautiful. It really had a progression though. It started off very basic until they got to those horror elements, and it became like nothing I have ever seen before. And I will definitely be picking up another one of Junji Ito's horror mangas. Hey, I also wanted to give a shout out to the booktuber that put me on the Junji Ito train. Her channel name is Super Blomper. Sam at that channel, she would tell you she is a Junji Ito girly. Go check out her channel. She's got great stuff. She reviews horror and manga, and I will link her channel down in the description. So I hope you enjoyed what I said about this manga. This was my first experience. I can't wait to jump into some more, you know, maybe Berserk, maybe Monster. We'll see where my interests lie. But hey, if you like this, you know, hit like, subscribe, and I will see you guys again on the flip side. So let's just remember, like I always tell you, let's keep growing to be better people. Let's keep growing to be better readers. Peace.
Everything that happens is motivation.